Hey, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you and welcome to the channel. Got a quick little scenario I'm going to run through today. And this is a United States attempts to eliminate, disarm the Russian nuclear forces. The Russians will be dispersing their forces, and then they'll be launching retaliatory strikes against NATO. Give you an idea of what we're looking at here. This is all in once everything starts firing, so it is going to be a mess. Let's just say there's a lot of bombs going off in a lot of places, a lot of stuff being targeted, and we're going to have an interesting scenario. So let's take a look at it. We'll run through, and we will see what happens. So I'm going to execute all plans. Let's go ahead and take a look. So Russia should be starting to disperse some of their forces, and the United States is going to start firing. And we already see some of it now. Let me take that off, by the way. So the U.S. is now starting to fire their nuclear arsenal, doing some sub-launched missiles to start with as a disarming strike. This would be out of our Ohio-class subs with the Trident sub-launch ballistic missiles. And we're starting to see some of the ICBMs starting to fire off as well. It said Russian forces are dispersing more and more. It's increasing the survivability of their nuclear forces for retaliation strikes. Of course, their sub-forces are going to be already naturally dispersed. We're also going to see their mobile launchers. One advantage of the mobile launchers is that they can move locations versus a fixed ICBM site. There are downsides to it. Clearly, the United States has never pursued a mobile launch platform. Russia and China have. I should say for ICBMs, it's positioned in the United States. There was some in the past, the Pershing missiles that were deployed in Europe. So I shouldn't say they've never had a road mobile units, just not on a strategic ICBM level. See a ton of stuff getting fired. So this is going to run for a bit before the Russians start retaliating. So what is the point of something like this, like the survivability of nuclear forces? Because the more survivable your nuclear forces are to a first strike, the less onus you have to push the button and launch everything right away. Gives you more time to respond to potential attacks. What if this is a glitch in the system? What if they're not actually firing ICBMs at you? So having a more survivable nuclear force gives you more options. Now you see there's a massive amount of warheads coming in here. Just an absolute nightmare scenario for any country. United States and Russia have a close parity to operationally deployed warheads. And then if you start adding in strategic reserves and everything, deployed's around 1,700 warheads each, and then gets into the 3,000 to 4,000 strategic reserves. And there's a certain amount being earmarked for destruction, but there's tons and tons flying around. We'll see here in the next 5 minutes or so, the Russians will start retaliation strikes. Just zoom in. Gives you a little better view of just everything coming down. So both Russia and the United States are both countries with a large amount of landmass and heavily dense population centers spread out by very less dense population centers. Look at that. But what you're seeing is, even with these devastations, destruction of some of the silo sites, you still have the rogue mobile launchers have withstood. And surviving most of these initial assaults. Okay, we're going to start seeing, I want to say here, just a little bit longer, we should start seeing some Russian forces start firing their weapons. And good old Magnus in the background chirping at me. He is a very vocal little man. He loves nuclear war too, you know. But I mean, isn't that all just a cat's alley right there? Death and destruction. They look cute and adorable, but they're little killing machines. They're all about stuff like this. Okay, so we see their sub-launched ballistic missiles starting to fire off now. Russia has a few subs, their Oscars and their, what is the other one? Delta, I'm sorry. And Borei, Borei. I'm terrible with pronunciations. In fact, a lot of people like to call me out because I pronounce nuclear sometimes strange, but you know what? It's just something you got to live with sometimes. Some people I work with, I mean, it's funny because, I mean, there's people, I pronounce their names 4 or 5 different ways depending on the time, day. Sometimes people ask me too, is this how you pronounce Annalisa? Is this how you pronounce Annalisa? It's like, I don't know. I said, I pronounce it 5 different ways. You're asking the worst person. All right. So Russia is attacking both the United States and NATO countries. So we see some of the first stuff starting to drop along some of the NATO allied countries, Poland, Germany, United Kingdom, France. And they have more stuff coming in. We still haven't anything landed in the United States, but we see a massive amount of warheads incoming there too. There's one thing evident using any type of simulation, whether it's this or more advanced simulation like command modern operations. The idea of a first strike and being able to launch a first strike and to be able to be successful at the first strike doesn't really match reality. There's things that can be done. There are ballistic missile defense systems, but nothing's in place that would really reliably guarantee a first strike that wouldn't see a massive retaliation in return. Even for, you know, like a China that currently doesn't have the same amount of deployed warheads as a Russia or the United States. They're expanding their forces, but still Russia and the United States has approximately about 90% of the world's deployed, or not deployed, but the world's nuclear warheads. It's still enough that it would cause a untold amount of damage and casualties and loss of life. We see stuff is just dropping everywhere right now. And mind you, this is with their ICBMs having been mostly compromised and destroyed on a first strike, which, you know, may not even happen. They may launch before we even destroy them. I will say that some of their platforms, like the Sarmat missiles, has had a terrible track record, though, on test launches. Still got a ton more. I think most everything is dropped in Europe. Zoom in a little. We see Denver getting lit up, Kansas City, Springfield, Grand Junction, Los Angeles, Bakersfield. I mean, come on, man. Don't do Bakersfield. Phoenix. You know, I think in the event of a nuclear war, as long as Bakersfield survives, the country will carry on. We lose Bakersfield in California, we've lost everything. I don't want to live in a world that Bakersfield isn't prominent in. Okay. Sped things up a little bit just to kind of get the last of these going. Okay. Let's go ahead and run our casualties. There's still some strategic bombers. At this point, there'd be a lot of planes in the air, a lot of stuff doing interceptions. I wouldn't count on a large amount of survivability on those forces, so I'm just going to run it now at this point. And I may come back and let them kind of run it and just see what a potential addition is. But as soon as the United States said we're going to start launching missiles, they're going to have their own, Air National Guard. They're going to have fighters up in the air. All right. So let's do a quick rundown here. 20.5 million for United States, 5.9 million United Kingdom, 20.9 million Russia, 87,000 Puerto Rico, 1.6 Poland, Mexico 240,000, Luxembourg 1,000, Lithuania 50,000. Quite a lot of casualties here. Some of these population-wise, almost 15% of the Russian population. Let's take a look at fatalities overall across the world. 59.6 million. There will be an additional almost 5.8 million cancer fatalities, increased cancer fatalities. Over almost 5 million square kilometers evacuated. And again, this is initial damage and destruction. That's not counting long-term. You can see some of the fallout in the United States, a little bit in Canada. Let's see here. Let's cut over to here. Europe, Russia. And again, this is off of, a U.S. first strike. And so still a massive amount of destruction for a retaliation strike on the United States. And again, it would no guarantee even on a first strike. I'm going to let these bombers run. No guarantees even on a first strike that we would be able to successfully neutralize their ICBM, silo ICBMs. Now, the bigger question is if we were able to catch them without their mobile launchers dispersed. And we'll do a scenario like that. Okay, what if we didn't? What if we had B-2 bombers that were able to drop, B-83 nuclear bombs, taking out some of the mobile sites as we're doing, if we are able to get our subs even closer to Russia to be able to launch sub-launch ballistic missiles with even less of a trajectory time. A lot of different ways you can run that, and you can do it somewhat the flip side. Now, it wouldn't be realistic to have, Russia doesn't have a stealth bomber to correlate to that. We could potentially have something like China, which is working on something along those lines, including 6th generation stuff. So I'm rerunning the casualties now that I let the bombers hit. Shouldn't be a huge difference, but we may see at least some level of increased casualties. Looks like the Russian one's specially focused on Europe and NATO countries. Okay. So it did increase. I mean, we're talking not 10% of the population of the United States, almost 32 million. Didn't see a much larger increase on the Russia side. Let's see, overall fatalities. Now we're up to 94, almost 95 million. Almost 20 million cancer fatalities. So a much larger increase in the amount of losses and casualties. So, not good news. Don't launch nuclear weapons. What can I say? Just to give you an idea, a quick spiral. I made a couple scenarios, and like I said, there doesn't seem to be a plausible first strike scenario among the big three when it comes to nuclear armed powers, the United States, China, and Russia, that is successful to any level that wouldn't see a massive retaliation under best case scenarios. So appreciate everybody. Hope you enjoy the video. Thanks. Like and subscribe. Check out some of my ambience videos. Out.